Tyler Perry wasn't the name anyone expected to dominate headlines that night. As viewers tuned into the 25th BET Awards, most anticipated the usual sparkle red carpet dazzle, celebrity glamour, and a few meme-worthy moments, but instead, it was Perry Hollywood's famously soft-spoken powerhouse and a steadfast supporter of Meghan Markle, and Prince Harry who seized the spotlight with a speech that felt more like a veiled expose than a tribute. He didn't speak with venom or volume, but his message cut deep, slicing through Meghan's meticulously crafted public image with the precision of a scalpel. To understand the full weight of his words, we need to rewind to 2020. At the height of the royal exit storm, when Meghan and Harry turned their backs on the monarchy, Perry stepped in with a gesture that made global headlines. He handed over the keys to his $18 million Beverly Hills estate, assumed responsibility for their security, and covered their immediate needs, ensuring they had a soft landing in America during a turbulent transition. At the time, his actions were viewed as the benevolent help of a man who understood fame's darker side. But behind the generous exterior, Perry now reveals the relationship turned parasitic. What began as friendship and support evolved into a draining, one-sided arrangement, emotionally and financially costly. That's what made his speech so startling. Without ever naming her, Perry painted a vivid picture, a man offering his home, his trust, and his heart, only to be abandoned once he had served his purpose. Some folks borrow blessings like they're owed, he said, but never return the favor. The audience didn't need names, the context was unmistakable. Insiders say Perry had long held his tongue, reluctant to expose someone he once sheltered. But something had changed. The final straw came when Meghan reportedly requested use of Perry's private jet, a small favor she allegedly called it, but when he declined, not out of financial concern, but because he felt taken advantage of. Meghan was said to have reacted with anger. That moment, Perry later told Confidence, was the breaking point. The quiet favor had become an expectation, and expectations had turned into entitlement. Perry wasn't the only one noticing the pattern, according to multiple sources. Those within his professional circle, assistants, colleagues, even producers warned him. Meghan doesn't return favors, she collects them like currency, then discards those no longer useful to her storyline. Initially, Perry dismissed the warnings, believing in the sincerity of To People Under Siege, but as time passed and lucrative Netflix and Spotify deals rolled in and gratitude never followed, it became evident there would be no reciprocity. So, when he stood on that stage, he wasn't merely recounting personal history. He was declaring a limit. Even the kindest hearts have boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed, silence ends. Meghan had long positioned herself as a misunderstood outsider, silenced by the monarchy. But Perry wasn't the monarchy. He wasn't a media hound. He was a friend who opened his home, no strings attached. And now, publicly, he was pulling the curtain back. The illusion cracked, the fairy tale shimmer dulled. For the first time, people saw the savior turning into the whistleblower, and they listened. The timing couldn't have been more damaging. Meghan and Harry were in the early stages of pitching a documentary about freedom and influence. But Perry's speech sent shockwaves. Within hours, investor interest began to evaporate. Trust had been compromised, the illusion shattered. Meghan's last real Hollywood ally had walked away, and Hollywood noticed. This wasn't just drama, this was a tectonic shift in an industry built on silent loyalties and favors traded in shadows. Public confrontation is rare, but Tyler Perry isn't just another player, he's a media mogul, a studio owner, a figure of quiet strength and immense influence. So when someone of that stature speaks out, especially against someone he once defended, the fallout is seismic. Calls started pouring in the next morning. One producer reportedly withdrew from Meghan and Harry's Netflix project. Hours after Perry's remarks aired, another investor, who had already attended to planning sessions, bluntly said, "I don't want to be part of something that feels this toxic." It wasn't the concept they doubted, it was the people, suddenly. Meghan's name, a once powerful draw for progressive platforms, began to raise red flags. At Arkwell, her PR team scrambled. They rushed to reshape the narrative portraying Perry as jaded, confused, or out of touch with Meghan's real motives. They pitched exclusives, leaked behind-the-scenes footage, and even hinted at a podcast rebuttal. None of it worked. Media outlets didn't buy it, if anything. The campaign reeked of desperation and only deepened suspicions, the harder they pushed. The more the story slipped from their grasp, the harder Meghan's team pushed back, the more people began to question what were they really trying to hide. Behind the curtain, things were unraveling. Close friends of Tyler Perry started revealing that he hadn't intended to speak out publicly at all. For years, he'd quietly endured what he described as emotional manipulation. It wasn't a rash decision, it was one he'd agonized over for months. But the moment that broke him wasn't the jet request or the empty business pitch. It was the realization that Meghan wasn't just ungrateful, she was actively using his name for personal gain. According to someone familiar with Perry's inner circle, Meghan had invoked his name during a high-level funding pitch in early 2024, implying he was quietly backing her latest media project without his knowledge or consent. When word got back to Perry, he was furious. That was the final push. He wasn't out to stir drama, he was defending his own reputation. And once he broke his silence, others followed. One of Meghan's former assistants described the environment as emotionally exhausting. Meghan, they said, micromanaged every narrative, demanded unwavering loyalty, and retaliated against anyone who challenged her. A former producer on their failed Spotify venture echoed that sentiment, claiming Meghan's obsession with perfection crushed every creative idea. She didn't want collaborators, the producer said. She wanted yes men. Even Oprah's once cozy circle seemed to be stepping back. Sources noted that the two camps hadn't exchanged a single friendly call in months, and after Perry's speech, Oprah's team maintained complete silence. No comment, no defense, just distance. The dominoes had started falling. Meghan had long championed herself as a feminist icon and independent force, a woman who defied the crown and survived the storm. But now, that narrative was cracking. And not because of tabloids, but from people who knew her personally. Tyler Perry didn't just offer help, he gave her a home, a shield, and his full trust. And now, he was joining a chorus of voices pulling off the mask. His speech set something larger in motion. What started as a personal revelation evolved into a cultural reckoning. Meghan Markle was no longer untouchable, and the backlash went deeper than optics. It hit her bank accounts, with Netflix rumored to be reassessing their long-term involvement and other backers stepping away. Arkwell's financial future was under pressure. Sources close to the foundation confirmed multiple internal projects had been paused. Hiring was frozen, budgets were under weekly review, and morale was collapsing. What was once a rising brand fueled by fame and goodwill was now engulfed in uncertainty and damage control. Public trust was eroding fast. Meghan's carefully curated image, that of a misunderstood, silenced outsider, was being re-examined. Stories of entitlement, manipulation, and conditional loyalty were shifting the narrative. Social media, once her stronghold, turned against her. Supportive hashtags were hijacked with criticism, memes, and comparisons, casting her as arrogant and inauthentic. This wasn't just another PR hit, it was an identity unraveling. The roles Meghan had leaned on, feminist icon, victim of monarchy, self-made mogul, were all under scrutiny. Even loyal fans were falling silent. Outlets once eager to praise her began hesitating. No one wanted to be seen clinging to a collapsing brand behind closed doors. Meghan was said to be in full panic mode. Furious texts flew to Perry after his speech, accusations of betrayal, humiliation, and sabotage. But Perry never responded. Not that night, not later. He was done. And that silence cut deeper than any statement. Those close to him confirmed He had felt emotionally trapped for years, pushed to give, pressured to stay silent, and expected to remain loyal to someone who viewed loyalty as transactional. More voice is added to the wave. A respected publicist revealed Meghan's team had blacklisted reporters who veered from the approved script. A former Arkwell strategist said Meghan routinely rejected expert advice if it didn't match her preferred storyline. One ex-staffer put it simply, "That place was where gratitude went to die." The allegations weren't just explosive, they were consistent. The same themes repeated: control, manipulation, image-first decisions. Even Hollywood insiders began to tread carefully. Executives whispered that working with Meghan was like playing chess with a mirror. Every move met with distortion, nothing reflecting the truth. Then came the data. A recent poll showed support for Meghan and Harry had plummeted by over 30% in the US and the UK. Their reputation had long since soured. Now, the fallout was global. Sponsors were pulling out. Collaborators were vanishing. Meghan's once promising empire had become a warning sign.